Okay, the podcast set up downtown. We got motion. What's the idea? People, the conversation's open. Lee Andrews Group, the firm, yeah, we here now. Let's talk about great ideas. Have a sit down. Welcome to the podcast, the Idea People.
And welcome to the Idea People at Lee Andrews Group. I'm your host, Rick Garcia. Kristy Campbell is our guest. Kristy's a brand identity specialist and graphic designer at Pink Pony Creative, and she joins us all the way from Orewa, New Zealand. Welcome to the Idea People, Kristy. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Rick. No, thank you guys so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be a guest.
We are thrilled. Tell us, what is Pink Pony Creative?
So Pink Pony Creative is my business, my brand identity and graphic design agency that I have here in New Zealand. We are a team of 6, all females, and I've had this business for about 4 years now. And we do everything from, I really describe it as bold, vibrant, punchy branding for businesses, small to medium companies all over the world, thanks to social media.
Well, how'd you get started in the business of brand identity?
Yeah, so it was quite a seamless. It was a slow progression that I had into brand identity. You know, when I was younger, I was always into graphic design. I did a Bachelor of Graphic Design and Animation, finishing university. And then from there, I worked for 3 different companies for about 7 years. In that time, I did the travel thing, did all that, and then came back home. I worked for a business for about 2 years. And that's when I found that I was feeling really creatively uninspired. I wanted something bigger and better for my own life. So I decided to create this 100-day design challenge to get myself out of this creative rut and try something new. So I never set out to have a brand identity business at all. That was never the intention. But when I started this Instagram page to keep myself accountable for this 100-day design challenge, I started to get a bit of engagement. People started following along, and someone just said to me, "Hey, look, can you make me a logo?" And that was 4 years ago, and Pink Pony Creative was officially born. I'd actually never really didn't dive into branding until that point, because someone basically asked me for it and I just gave it a go. And then 4 years ago, since that point, I've just learned so much along the way, you know, obviously upskilling from learning things online and then just doing the work itself. I've learned a lot.
So we're talking to the branding industry, but if you could just break it down for our listeners who may not know, okay, I hear the word branding all the time, but what the heck does it mean? Can you define it for us?
Yeah. Of course. So branding can be very confusing for, you know, the average person. You say the word branding, but it can mean so many different things. So I like to imagine branding like it's a person when you're thinking about branding for your business. So at the top level, we have your brand, which is your organization or your company itself. And then beneath that, we have your brand identity. So this is everything from your messaging, your tone of voice, the way you feel, the way you look as a business, and how you present that to your consumers. And then beneath that, we have visual identity. So as it says in the name, this is everything visual: your logo, your color palette, your typography, which are your fonts, your photography, and then simply comes down to the logo. And then outside of all that, you have what you call the brand image. So this is the way that the consumer feels about the brand. So with that breakdown, as I said, think of it like a person. How does this person walk? How does this person talk? And how do we make your brand come alive for your consumers? I mean, it's such a big topic, but at the end of the day, people connect with people. So how do we make your brand almost feel like a person, feel like it's got its own personality to present to the world?
Kristy Campbell is our guest on the Idea People at Lee Andrews Group, and she is a brand identity specialist and graphic designer at Pink Pony Creative. Kristy, you've established a unique presence in the branding industry. So the question now I have for you is, can you share some of the key strategies and decisions that have contributed to Pink Pony's success, how you've navigated the challenges, but also what makes for effective branding?
Yeah, so I can say this in the same way that I've made my own branding effective. So when you're thinking about your own business's branding, what makes a successful brand? And it's multiple different things. So one big thing is consistency, making sure everything in your brand is consistent. So the biggest thing with consistency that people think of is often color. Color is a big thing in your brand. And although it seems, you know, might not seem like a big deal. It's subconscious. We all think of color. We associate emotions and feelings with color. So if you can make sure that's consistent across your brand, you're being successful. Another way to be successful with your branding is to have adaptability. So this is making sure your brand and the visuals, the assets, and everything can be adaptable across all the different types of marketing and the different types of touch points you're going to have as a business. And this could be different for many businesses. Mostly these days, it's digital because we're so digital heavy these days. And then even things like adaptability, differentiation. How does your brand stand out from someone else? And if you can make sure it stands out because it's truly unique, you are going to be successful. But it's also a combination of all of that and a few other aspects, but also, what does your target audience want? What do they want to see? And then it's also a sort of intersection of how do you want to portray yourself to the world and what's the persona you want to give off? Because although the target audience might want to see one thing, if you're going to be targeting exactly that, you could become the sea of sameness amongst everyone else. So it's just making sure that you can stand out, be different, and really make an impact. But when it comes to my business, I would say I've kind of done everything in that way. And, Pink Pony is quite an unusual name for a design agency. I literally got people laughing at my business name when I said I was really going to take this seriously. But actually, for me, it's really memorable and creative. And it's enabled me to have a brand that truly stands out. And no one has Pink Pony as a name in terms of graphic design and branding. And now I've enabled myself to have a giant pink horse in my office. I've got cowboy decor. I've got all these different types of, pony inspired elements. And people literally see pink or, even giant plastic horses and they think of Pink Pony Creative. So I've basically done what I do for others for myself, and people can see that.
Okay, so you have a lot of explaining to do now, right? Why pink? Why pink? Why horses? And who's Pedro?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so I love the question. So I started the business, like I said, as a 100-day design challenge, not intending it on being a business. And so when I opened this Instagram account, I decided to call it Pink Pony Creative. And the reasoning behind that name is because when I was young, I loved pink and I loved ponies. And I honestly just kept coming back to this one, like the name. My gut was telling me this was the right name. So I stuck with it and I just went for it. So that's the name behind the business. And Pedro is I'm looking this way because he's literally right there. He's a giant life-sized plastic horse that sits in our office, and he's now become like this mascot for the brand. We've got stickers, Instagram filters. He's 3D modeled on our website homepage. He's iconic for the business now, so we love him.
We're going to tell people toward the end of the podcast where they can actually check out Pedro and your website and some of the work that you do. You're an incredible graphic designer. I see you as an artist whose canvas is a laptop. How do you see yourself?
Oh, how do I see myself? That's a great question. I'm just going to talk about this holistically rather than specifically design skills. Again, I think I actually reflect my business in a way. I am very bold. I would say I'm quite a confident person, although I do have all these, aspects to myself. I do think I have quite a lot of self-doubt. Like, do I deserve to be here? I go to these international speaking events and I speak, and it's incredible and I love it, but I do get the sense of, do I deserve to be here? But I just keep going. So, I do see myself as quite a bold, confident, humble person, and just someone who honestly loves what they do and really is so grateful to even have what I've created, because it's so much more than what I ever thought would be possible for my life, to be honest. And even like finishing university, I always said that I wanted to own my own design studio. I never thought I'd actually do it. So hopefully that was the right answer.
Well, the right answer would be your answer, of course. We have Kristy Campbell as our guest on the Idea People at Lee Andrews Group. Kristy's a brand identity specialist and graphic designer, Pink Pony Creative. What are some common misconceptions, Kristy, about branding that you've encountered? Because there you are in front of a client, somebody who you want to hire you, or maybe they've already hired you. They're signing the check, and now you have to clear up some misconceptions about what their branding ideas might be. How do you address those?
Oh, common misconceptions. I mean, there's so many when it comes to branding. I think one of the biggest things could be, yes, things need to look good, but they need to be functional. So it needs to make sense. It needs to be usable in depending on whatever you're doing. There's such a with branding is when it comes to things like if you're working with a client, right? And they say, I don't want to use the color blue, but I want to use purple because I like purple. It's then, as a branding expert, you've got to convince them that purple might not be the best answer for their brand. We've got to then cater to them, talk them through why it's not going to be the right answer and how we can then use that across the brand in another way and target the right audience, because what they think they want isn't necessarily the right answer. Does that make sense? Sorry, I kind of waffled on then.
No, it does, but it leads me to a follow-up question then, because we've been talking about colors off and on. It's essential when you look at a logo of whatever you're looking at. It could be a product, it could be a company, it could be your favorite sports team. So we know how important colors can be. What are the rules, though? Are there rules to choosing a color?
You can think about it in so many different ways. There is color theory, which is based, like what we do is a big part of, color theory is based on a big part of what we do. Essentially, a color like red can really resonate with things like love and warmth, but then it can also feel quite like strong and have a lot of hatred. And so it can, depending on the way that you position those colors with your assets and your visuals, can really depend on the way that it's perceived by the consumer. Sorry, what was the question again? It's gone over my head.
Well, are there rules?
Yes,
are there rules for colors?
Yes, yeah, definitely rules for colors. So I would say, although color theory plays a really big part in what we do, you don't necessarily have to listen to it, because a lot of the time, even for something like in the food industry, there is so many fast food brands that are branded with yellow and red. And obviously it's for a reason, because those colors can really resonate and they can actually make you feel a bit hungry. But so in doing so, if you started a fast food chain, making your brand red and yellow would essentially also make you very similar to your competitors. So it's a matter of finding the right answer. Do we want to be really similar to the competitors, or do we want to really stand out, go for something truly unique and make quite an impact? I think it's Taco Bell is purple, and you wouldn't necessarily pick purple for a fast food chain, but they do quite a good job because it is so different to those red and yellows that you see everywhere.
Well, that's a good point. Now, you hail from New Zealand, which is where you're talking to us from now. You do some work in the United States. I guess I'm curious to know if branding strategies differ from one country to the next, or if they do at all.
That's a really great question. In New Zealand, I would say that our ethics, views, etc., are probably very similar just to people in general in America. Even places like the UK and like Australia, and that's predominantly where we work. It does get really complicated for things or for other countries. And it's interesting because when you think about design and branding, it really is subjective and very much about how you perceive things. Perfect example, what I think is luxury might not be the same for you. You might think luxury is very different. So in design, there's, you can have a script font, a beautiful script font, but what I say, that could be luxury to me, but to someone else, that could be really tacky, really cheap. So it's essentially the same when you're thinking about all these different industries and different countries. It's very much subjective, and you have to kind of learn and dive into those industries to really figure it out.
Okay, Kristy Campbell's our guest on the Idea People at Lee Andrews Group. Kristy's a brand identity specialist and graphic designer at Pink Pony Creative. I'm going to give out her website at the end of this podcast so you can kind of check out her company and see who Pedro is, by the way. So we have to adapt. Things seem to change overnight sometimes, right? So when it comes to branding strategy, how do you respond to changing consumer behaviors and trends?
Good question. So I would say for things like consumer, like trends, say if we're thinking about trends in the branding and the design industry, although you do want to stay modern, stay with the times, it's actually important to remember that things like trends come and go, and we need to be timeless. So if you're going to follow a trend, you could risk your brand becoming, you know, not feeling quite right, feeling really out of place, feeling a little bit too unique in a couple of years' time. So we have to figure out, how do we make this brand really timeless, really, extend the period of time that it can be relevant for. So, I mean, that's just one point to think of. But I think overall, when you're thinking about this, although branding is very key and it's what I do, you've got to remember that as a business, we can't just place all of the importance on one part of the business. You have to, I would describe it like a wheel on a car. Branding could be one part of, it's one wheel of the car. You've also got to have your marketing all in motion and all correct. You've got to have your sales. You've got to have your communication. Those are all other parts of the vehicle, other wheels on the car. To have everything turning at once, then you can become successful. You could have a business that could have the best branding you've ever seen and the most accurate branding for that target audience. But if those other wheels on the car aren't moving, you most likely won't become successful. You've got to have everything going at once.
Is it true you lead an all-female team at Pink Pony? And if so, how did the makeup of the team come about?
Yes, so I do. So again, like, everything that I've done in my business has been very sort of slow. It's transitional. It's happened because I've kind of just stumbled upon these situations. So I started to get really busy in my business. So I decided to make my first hire. I never actually thought I'd have a team. And then growing the business, in all honesty, I just continued to hire women. And someone actually said to me in the past year, they said, you don't have a very diverse team, Kristy. They were asking me, a great question. Why? Like, why don't I hire any males at this point? And, I didn't actually have a straight up answer for that. Love males, of course. But I think for me in my business, I really love female empowerment. And I just wanted an all-female team. It felt right to me. So that's why I continued to follow through with it.
In your experience, what are the key elements that make a brand memorable and influential in today's competitive market? And I know that there's really no magic answer. And by the way, if you gave us the answer, then people wouldn't need your services. But how do you know when something has that it factor? We refer to folks, I think, of celebrity ilk as, oh, he or she has that it factor. What is it about a brand that gives it that it factor?
It really depends on the business and the industry that the brand is in. But a couple of things I'll just kind of roll off my tongue. So something that I really believe in this day and age is actually combining personal branding with business. So as the founder of my company, I have my own social media platform for my own design work. And by including and merging your personal brand with a business, another example is like Kylie Jenner with all of her Kylie Cosmetics and all the businesses she's got. All of the Kardashians do it. They have such a strong personal brand. No matter what they bring out, people are going to want to buy it because they want to try it. Obviously, then you want to be able to provide and deliver a good quality product for them to continue coming back. But essentially, if you can have a really strong personal brand, again, people relate to people. So if you can have that, no matter what you bring out, people are going to want to try it. There's so many different examples of this, got so many to list. It's not even funny, with personal brands integrated with businesses. So many celebrities do it as well. So that's one. You could definitely try personal branding in with your business, can really make a really big impact. Give it that it factor. Another one as well is to push the boundaries. Again, depending on the industry, I'm not saying go out and be a law firm and push the boundaries and be edgy, but if you can push the boundaries a little bit in terms of what you do or the message you're trying to deliver, you're going to punch through that market. You're going to make an impact. A couple of other things would be to make it, give you the it factor, is really, God, now I'm just trying to think of a few more. There's so many I could definitely count off my list, but what's some other ones that off the top of my head? Oh, now I'm just trying to think.
Well, that's hard. It's
tongue.
like asking you what your favorite movie or favorite song is. I put you on the spot, right?
Great questions, though.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Listen, this is an important aspect of why we wanted to talk to you too, and that is, what is your advice to someone who wants to enter the world of public relations or graphics design?
Ooh, if you want to enter it, I would say one of the biggest few pointers I could give you, you've got to obviously practice what you preach. do it every day, even for 10 minutes, even for 15. If it's a matter of design, you could start pen to paper drawing, giving things a go. The other thing that I think anyone could take this advice on board when it comes to even things like business is time. You need to commit, you need to be consistent and allow yourself time to get better. For me, it took me honestly, probably 9 years before I actually felt like I was getting really good. It took me that long to feel like I was like, yep, I'm feeling good now. Like I'm good at this. It takes a long time to get good. So if you can be patient and keep working at it, you'll be just fine. As well, online, there's so many YouTube, so many free courses or paid courses online that you can take that you'll be able to learn so much from. Even with social media these days, people provide so much value. This another one, a little it factor for businesses. If you can share value on your, publicly, social media pages, whatever it might be, people want to, sink in that value and really get it, all the information they can from these businesses. So if you can do that, you're going to really go far.
Kristy Campbell has been our guest on the Idea People at Lee Andrews Group. Kristy, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We really appreciate that. And thanks for making us smarter.
Oh, no worries at all. Thank you so much for having me a guest on your podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah, check out pinkponycreative.com. You'll get to see what we're talking about the pink and the pony and Pedro, by the way, right? And if you want to find out more about Kristy and her work as a brand identity specialist, and for more information about us, check out leeandrewsgroup.com.
Okay, the podcast set up downtown. We got motion. What's the idea, people? The conversation's open. Lee Andrews Group, the firm. Yeah, we here now. Let's talk about great ideas. Have a sit. We on a mission. You get the idea, people. Glad you pulled up. How you doing? Nice to meet you.